Welcome to another episode of Involuntary Yoga. This week, we've got former UFC fighter, longtime MMA veteran, and he's fighting for the BKFC heavyweight title. We have Alan Belcher coming on.
This interview was absolutely amazing. I think this guy's incredible, obviously an incredible fighter. It's incredible what he's doing in bare knuckle, 6-7 straight knockouts, hoping to make his 8th straight knockout against the current champion. I mean, this show is an absolute heater. For those of you who have been talking trash about religion, we did touch on it a skosh. So just relax. But should kids fight more? How he parents, manifestation conversations, not only in athletics, but in your life.
I like that, I said before, if you're a hardcore MMA fan, you know who Alan Belcher is. And then he took a hiatus. He kind of left the UFC in his prime and reappeared about 8 years later. And to see him fighting bare knuckle again, we got into like what happened, why did he walk away, and then what it took to come back. So super interesting podcast. He's a very deep guy, and he seems awesome, very focused on winning this title, and I can't wait.
Just his vibe is good too. I mean, for such a big burly guy. Spirituality is dead is something we talked about, which I think you should listen to. Learning how to breathe, the Wim Hof method, meditation, your ego is not your amigo. So this one's pretty chock full of not only good conversation, but tools you can use. So this one was awesome. I love this one.
Yeah, and just it's a lot of tips even for up and coming fighters of things that he learned over his career that changed from mindset. And mindset is everything. So tune in, make sure you like and subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think of the show, and we've got our gym will be set up soon. So we'll have some updates and then some giveaways. So let us know what you think.
Did we do any giveaways last week? Was there anybody who commented or no? Okay.
Yeah. Let us know what you think, and hope you enjoy the show with Alan Belcher.
If you don't drink Fit Soda, then you. It's got aminos for recovery and electrolytes for hydration. All my friends drink Fit Soda, and they're cool as like me. I got a model girlfriend, she drinks Fit Soda. I got a fireman buddy, he drinks Fit Soda. Construction workers, they drink Fit Soda. Every girl you're attracted to drinks Fit Soda. This camera guy right here, he drinks Fit Soda. It doesn't get any better than this. It's time to get your Fit Soda. Make sure you go to fitsoda.com if you want to be cool like me. The best part about Fit Soda? Zero sugar. Sugar sucks too. Sugar. I hate sugar. Man, this. I'm out of here.
We are joined by Alan the Talent Belcher. If you don't know who he is, you should look him up because he's a longtime MMA veteran, longtime UFC veteran, black belt in Jiu Jitsu, and now current BKFC fighter. And he's got his title fight coming up less than a month away, right? February 24th?
February 24th. That's right. Yeah.
How are you doing today, Alan? We appreciate you joining us, taking the time. I know title camps are real busy, and I'm sure you've got a full schedule right now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm training a lot right now. But yeah, thanks for having me on. We got to promote this thing and sell this thing.
There we go.
So it's got work to do. So fuck it, let's go.
So before we get into it, where is the title fight at?
It's going to be in New Orleans, Louisiana. Yep, down. It's close by me down here. So bare knuckle comes down around this area. Gets a venue down here whenever I fight, and I bring all my friends and family.
Nice. Yeah, I remember. Actually, I don't even know if you remember this. I came down. You and I sparred a little bit with Joe Warren and Diego Marias and them, and yeah, we were staying in New Orleans, and I think it was like an hour and a half drive for us to get down to you. So it's not too far at all.
Yeah. It wasn't very far.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very far from New Orleans.
So I got
sure.
One thing I want to ask is when you pop back up to bare knuckle, I was like, man, I hadn't heard that name in a while. But I want to go back to the start of your career. Kind of, how did you get into MMA, fighting, training, all of that?
Oh, shoot, man. Well, yeah, that goes way back. I started martial arts when I was 8 years old doing karate. So that was one of the things I think about almost on a daily basis. I kind of have a list of things that I'm very grateful for and coincidences. And I think are very interesting to look at. And there was just a guy, and you got to understand too, I grew up in a small area that pretty much I mean, unless someone is from a place like that, it's usually pretty shocking to people that there's places that do not have, that are like outside of city limits, that have like almost no population at all, like 100 people or something, you know. So I grew up in a really, really small town in Arkansas. So the luck that of someone opening up a karate dojo in my town was pretty interesting. You know, it was pretty lucky. And the guy was very, very open-minded and very seeking knowledge himself too. So he really taught me a lot about opening my mind to different martial arts, and he introduced me to jiu-jitsu. And so between 8 and 12, 13 years old, I was practicing karate, that type of stuff, just striking and stuff. And then we started getting into jiu-jitsu. And then another big coincidence happened. It's a guy that I really wanted to train with. It was like an hour drive away from me, which was kind of like almost impossible to go there. You know, like my mom took me over there a few times, but he started teaching a couple miles from my house. Again, a huge coincidence. He came there twice a week. So that's where I really started learning about boxing and Muay Thai and jiu-jitsu and putting all that together. And this was still in a pretty dark time of UFC.
Yeah.
You know, so I had my first fight when I was 14.
14.
I fought a man that was I think he was about 28 years old. His name was Orville Boozer.
Orville Boozer was his real name?
Yeah, brother.
That's amazing. Orville Boozer?
So you're
Orville Boozer.
What a pimp.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of yeah, I love that name. What kind of fight was it?
Mixed martial arts. Yeah, MMA.
Okay.
It was my first MMA fight. I had a lot of karate matches before that, tournaments and things. I had, you know, some jiu-jitsu, grappling tournament, that type of thing. And then this is my first full contact, I think. Pretty sure this is my first one. Around that age, though, within a year or two, and I've noticed that there's been, looking back over my whole career, there was times where I'm just locked in and focused on getting lots of experience and just going and just addicted to the learning and then just the growing. And one of those times is like the last 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, I've had 8 fights in the span of about a year and a half. But I did that right before I got into the UFC. And I did this when I was 14, 15 years old. So there's been a few different periods where I was like super focused, and that first happened when I was like 14. It was anything I could get my hands on. I had somebody that was kind of, you know, watching after me and trying to, you know, and I was just listening 100% like to whatever they said. So it was all about don't worry about if it's boxing or kickboxing or MMA. So I fought literally in everything, dozens of fights between all different disciplines.
Yeah,
between the ages of 14 and 16.
I always recommend that for everybody, like the guys that I train and stuff. I'm like, do jiu-jitsu tournaments, do boxing, do kickboxing, like just get the experience, especially when you're amateur, because once you go pro, your record is wiped clean, you start fresh, so you might as well get like all those reps in.
And fight 28-year-olds when you're 14.
Yeah, I've got so many questions about this.
So do
I. Because all right, so I got to ask you. So 14, you're what, a freshman?
No, you're in like 8th grade.
That was about 8th, 9th grade, something like that. Yeah,
Man.
yeah. 14. I weighed about 172.
Okay, that was my next question. Like, what weight was this
6 foot tall, 5'11", 6 foot tall.
Oh, so you were a big kid.
I was a man. Yeah, I was. I went through. I mean, I was 14. I'd been through puberty, so I went from. I was actually about 5'2" in the 7th grade, 8th grade, something like that, and then the summer going into. Between 8th and 9th grade, I went from 5'2" to 6 foot.
Yeah, that's what kind of happened for me too.
Yeah, man, that was a life changing time, and also right before I got into this, so like a year or two before I started fighting, and this guy moved down the road from my house. Pivotal time for me was now I had lots of fight stories, lots of like scraps and stuff, because that was just the culture of where I grew up. It was very white trash. It was very, it was country, but, street at the same time. It was like, for me, climbing the hierarchy of life and, making a name for yourself. It really didn't relate to me to have like an education or career, be an entrepreneur, or any of that type of stuff. I don't know why it didn't really occur to me. So I was really just in the real focus of like my peers around me and how I could dominate and become an alpha type of thing. And I got this chip on my shoulder from this one particular fight that I had. And this wasn't the first time that I got my ass beat. This was several times I got my ass beat. When I was in 7th grade, we went to school. It was 7th through 12th graders was all in one school.
Oh, wow.
So juniors and seniors would give me daily whippings. You know what I'm saying? Daily beatings.
Where are they at now?
And, I don't know. I don't know where they're at now. Probably nowhere. Probably in the same place. But I'm grateful for them because they lit a fire underneath me that made me have to face my fears. And I was in a place where you would have to just choose to be a sheep or choose to be a lion. And so I chose lion. That's what I thought at the time. And so I just dedicated myself to fighting, especially after this one fight with that I always refer to in the 7th grade with Scott Arnold, where he had been like picking on me constantly.
This is a school fight or like a sanctioned one?
No, this is a school. This is a backyard fight. This is actually it's a front yard fight. It's a driveway of my friend Marcus Matheny's house. And so this kid's picking on me for weeks on end. He even cut my hair in front of a girl I was talking to. He was trying to interrupt me talking to a girl. And so he just cuts my hair, and I literally just took it because I was just scared or whatever. So I go back and I contemplate this, and I know that my dad would want me to stand up for myself even if I got my ass beat. So essentially that's what I ended up doing. I stood up for myself, and we rode the school bus together. This kid he was damn near 16. I was in the 7th grade. He had armpit hairs and went through puberty and had veins in his arm and stuff. And I was just like a little chubby fat kid, but I had a lot of heart. So he challenged me to fight him. Our friend had an older sister that was a senior. She called everyone that she knew, so everyone came there to watch. And I had some good moments, but overall, I got beat down like all the way down into the ground and stomped into the gravel and had gravel on my face and a Nike print on my face, and it was pretty rough. And my dad comes and picks me up. My mom and dad actually knew that I was doing this fight, So I'm like, look, I have to go and fight this guy. And my parents are like, well, they knew that I would be. This is one good thing about my parents right here. They understood things like this. This is the core of parenting.
Yeah,
is you cannot save your kids and make their life good, like safe and nice and comfortable. So at that time, that would be a time where a lot of parents would really interfere and be like, no, that's not. What if you get hurt? They understood that the pain that that might happen there would ultimately help me. So they said, okay, just go do your thing.
Not even just help you. Sorry, not even just help you, but yeah, like there's parents now, like if they interfere, like the ridicule that you get too as being like a young kid or anything for your parents stepping in and stopping it, man, like the ridicule lasts forever. It lasts longer than the pain.
You just don't learn that lesson either. Alan, we've talked about this concept so many times on this show because we have NFL players, MMA guys. We usually have someone alpha on this show who has been through a lot. And we've talked about this concept a ton. It's cool to hear you say that. Do you think kids nowadays are just way too shielded from hardship? That not that we should encourage fighting, but I always say kids should be forced into jiu-jitsu and karate when they're young just to learn those or sports at a high level that involve contact. Do you think we shield kids too much nowadays from the hardships and the danger and
Yeah, because you got kids too.
Yeah, I mean, of course. And I'm facing this with my kids. My kids are both around puberty age. My daughter just turned 13. So she just went through all her hormonal changes over the last year. And my son is 11, and he's right behind her right now. So I'm seeing that difference and that shift that I thought I knew, a lot about being a parent. And then I see this and I'm like, oh, wow, this is a whole new world now that they're more self-aware, they're self-conscious, they're developing their identity, their personality. And it's just a whole different world now. But I'm faced with this type of thing all the time, because as they get older and they get self-aware and they start to, question things, you'll see them start to, make choices, and their behavior is a lot related to what other people think.
Yeah, of
course, because they're so self-conscious, and there's just a lot of pain, man, that they go through, and it just reminds me a lot of times of what I had to go through, and it's just part of the cycle of life, man. Suffering and pain is part of it, and it makes you stronger. There's just no way around it. So having a mindset of being able to accept that, not only accept it, but find a way to enjoy it and embrace it, not let it keep you down too long. I think that's what I try to teach my kids. And I do think that the kids are coddled way too much. And it's not out of love from the parents. Okay. It's from laziness of the parents, because I was one of those lazy parents at times. There's been times in my life where I've been a great dad, and there's been times where I was totally in my own head, and I should have been paying more attention to my kids and what was going on. And also was just not aware of all of how important it is for you to be involved in raising the kids and nurturing them.
Yeah, and building that mentality. And
if you're not aware of that now as a parent, you need to be, because the social media is raising your kids for you. So if you just let them go to school and be on their phone, you're just leaving it up to, random chance and an algorithm to raise your kids. So you have to get them away from that and get them to realize, okay, it's time to forget about all this social media and the kids at school and all that, and come back in here. And, let's focus on reality. Let's focus on what's really happening. Look at this very deep. And luckily my kids are very deep and naturally kind of spiritual and philosophical, and they're growing into that. And I think that's the future of children too. The future children are the future. Just like when we were kids, they thought that we were idiots, and then and now at our age, we're shaping the world for the future. We think the same thing about these kids coming up, but they're really they're the future, and they're not all going to change the world for the better. But these next generations are part of our evolution, and if you think about it from a parenting standpoint of wanting your child to be successful, and you don't want to get your kid to get trampled, right, by the herd.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
You want your kid to be a leader. I mean, who doesn't? So the future leaders, man, these kids are in the future. It's all about consciousness. It's all about higher identity, higher consciousness, and being in tune with spirituality. Like it's just the future is the future revolution. Right. And people are going to see this. And I'm trying to get my kids ahead of the curve. So the old ego that we got passed down to us, that we're battling with, of like, the way that the world is viewed, to the way that we feel like there's something feeling that it's kind of wrong or missing or whatever, this whole matrix idea and things. The kids in the new generation, some of them will be raised up in a way that is completely in control of their mind and creating their life, and not abiding by all these systems that have been put in place before them.
Yeah, I like what you said earlier. You said the algorithm is raising your children, and I never even thought about it that way, because what they digest is all coming through based on what they look at daily. The algorithm mentions more and more things to them, and then that's just what starts coming through the floodgate. So So what I get from this kind of is you were bullied a bit. Probably everybody was where you were from, like you said. And then that was kind of the pivotal moment for you to become like a martial artist and kind of make yourself into a weapon, right?
Yeah, brother. Yeah, man. Yeah, without getting into that long story, some fire was lit on me and a chip was put on my shoulder, and those demons that were inside of me, they helped me carve away in the world, that allowed me to experience some really cool stuff and to feel empowered and that type of thing. So, that's what got me. That's what got me. I played sports and all that stuff, so I had a dream of being a Major League Baseball player at a time. And I pivoted away from that, and went into fighting full time, and then opened my gym, started teaching people. I've always loved to teach and mentor people. And that's really just what got me into the UFC, got me into top 10 pretty quickly, got me into a title contender kind of position, by the end of my career.
Yeah.
I stayed there for several times with injuries and whatnot. And without jumping ahead too much, those demons are what got me, that made me so ambitious. And I just rode that out until it didn't really serve me any longer. And I had to just change into a different person. And that's kind of like what led me away from the UFC. And that's probably your next question.
Yeah, I was getting there for sure. Because that, like I said, you popped back up and I was like, man, because you were like, how do I put it? You were a surging fighter through the UFC. Like, I mean, I was watching you way before I was in the UFC. I was always a fan of your fights because you were high level jiu-jitsu, but you always seemed to love to like strike it out. Like your fights were exciting. When I was doing some more research on you, I saw that you had gotten like 3 bonuses and 3 fights in a year. I definitely always remember like when your fights were on, they were brawls. Like you just went for it. And the one in particular that, and I've always wanted to ask you this actually, was your fight with Paul Harris. So that guy, man, there were times the UFC never called me to fight him, but I know that they'd called some other people and they were like, man, hell no, because if you don't remember Paul Harris, he was big on leg locks. He was like a juiced up little square Brazilian, but he wouldn't let go. So he would heel hook people and stuff, and the refs would have to like physically rip him off. He wouldn't let go, and he would tear guys' knees up. It ended up getting him kicked out of the UFC.
Hold on, for everyone who's not up to speed, meaning he gets the lock, the guy taps,
he would hold it.
Or the ref tries to break it up, and he would just hold it after the tap.
Yeah, like the refs would jump in.
So he's a scumbag.
And literally be trying to rip him off. That's what got him kicked out of the UFC eventually. Like he did it to Jake Shields, a bunch of people. And he did it over and over. And I remember seeing you fight him. And back then, like Paul Harris, it was like if people hit the ground with him, you almost were like cringing because you're like, is this guy's ACL going to get torn apart? And you handled him. Like, so you went to the ground with him. And I've always wanted to talk to you about this because I think I had heard back then that you did some training with Dean Lister, who is kind of like almost the grandfather of leg locks, if you will. And when you hit the ground, there was no panic, and you were able to reverse a lot of positions. You even got your leg. Can you walk me through like some of that training? Just this might be selfish. Maybe the listeners will like it, but I've been wondering for years.
Yeah, I will. And I think that I could probably make it could be valuable for anyone, honestly, because being out of fighting for so long which we'll talk about in a little bit probably, but like being out of fighting for so long allowed me to look at life from not just a fighting standpoint, because when you're obsessed with fighting and you're in the UFC, you know how that really consumes you. It can emotionally consume you, and it's you're all about that. You can't see the real world or the regular people, or so to speak. So I've learned a lot about it. And one thing I've learned about the fight with Polaris is that it's an example of putting your attention into something and to focus on something, right? So whatever you focus on, whatever you pay attention to and you obsess about is going to show itself, and there's going to be life brought to that in your life. So
like
when I started, Yes, exactly. It's literal. It's the reality of manifestation. I took the fight because I knew, and I think it was one of those moments where I was looking for something to really motivate me. That's what I really needed, is kind of people to root against me, or to at least believe that there was a very high risk for loss or injury or something like that. So I knew that was a fight. I knew just by the feeling of the challenge that I would win the fight, which is kind of crazy, but it's just a belief system that I've kind of built, in myself. So the higher the challenge, the more focused that there is. And we focused on leg lock defense. Became really good friends with Dean Lister. He came out and trained with me for several weeks. Eddie Bravo made a special trip. Davi Ramos from Brazil, he used to come several times to my gym. That was my buddy Mike Sanford's idea to bring up Davi Ramos. I really didn't know who he was, but he was a leg lock expert that was really in the competition scene, really high level at that time.
Yeah, I know who he is.
And then Daniel Moraes, Davi Ramos, Dean Lister, Eddie Bravo. We really just focused a lot more on the technique and the strategy side of it more than anything else, more than any other fight.
And those 1 second, and those of you listening, if you don't know those names, man, that's like the
who's who
all-star, I would say, of jiu-jitsu like trainers, man. So you put together like a squad to help you get ready for this. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Bro. No. That's it, man. And that's there's so many lessons in that. I would say things that I learned about myself and about achieving things, and when you put that type of focus into it, you put your energy even into the people that you're working with, right? When you want to do something, you go to people that have done what you've done, or they have the information, they have the key that you need to unlock the thing or whatever. And that's what I did. That was just kind of like, I feel like just a beautiful example of doing everything right for, the outcome that you're trying to get, and whatever you're trying to do. In this case, beat Huzamar Palhares, who was ripping people's legs apart, and focusing on it. And that's, like, people ask me all the time is like, why did you go to the ground with him, or was that your thing, or whatever? And it was just, my answer is just like, it's inevitable. Whenever you are just constantly working leg lock defense and counters and working in that, it's just going to happen. I don't know really how to explain it, but if that's what you practice all the time, that's, and I noticed that in a lot of fights and a lot of different scenarios and things. Like, for example, sometimes when you're fighting a takedown, you're fighting someone that's going to try to take you down, you work defending on the wall and getting up the wall and getting up and all that. And then you end up in your fight defending their takedowns the whole time. And you sometimes it causes you to lose because all you were focused on was just getting back up when they took you down, or having your back against the wall.
Yeah, I've said that.
So it's funny how the mind works.
Would you say, Alan, were you saying sort of your step back from fighting, and then how this relates to life? If someone's not a fighter, is you're sort of saying, like, you could do it in a business a lot where you're focused on, we own a beverage company, so we're always focused on not losing, or you're focused on something, and then you get that. So you're saying the step away sort of helped you refocus on what was important. Although you prepared for the ground, your mind was still focused on beating him in other parts of your game, which helped you beat him. Yeah. Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, I think that the reason why it was on the ground is because I just spent so much time on the ground. That's just the only place that the guy can fight. Yeah, it's literally the only place he can fight. So why would you go there? But we practice there all the time. I just happened to get enough practice in to beat him there. What I'm saying is, wherever you focus your attention is what you're going to put, is what you're going to create. So if you have a business or something, whatever area, if all you want in your business is to make money and you're focused on that, then you'll probably make money.
Yeah, it's a form of like target asphyxiation, I believe they call it.
Exactly.
Well, where I was
you know,
going with it is sometimes people will focus on the wrong thing unintentionally.
Oh yeah.
You know, you're focused
yeah.
on the problem, and that you just kind of said sometimes when you're focused too much on the ground and avoiding this guy's takedowns, you end up getting taken down and losing the fight.
Yeah.
I was kind of going to that place of
Yes.
sometimes we unintentionally are focused on the wrong thing, and then it manifests itself because you're trying to
Yes.
solve a problem almost too obsessively.
Yeah. And I almost think a little bit different sometimes because I noticed looking back on my career, I had coaches that whenever I'd get an opponent, we worked basically defending everything that my opponent was good at. And over the years I started learning, I'm like, why do we just spend working everything that he's good at? Why don't we work what I'm good at? You know, still focus some of that stuff like defensively. But even like when I fought Jacare, my coach wanted me to just do like all groundwork and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm not better at jiu-jitsu than him. I'm not going to get better at jiu-jitsu than him in the next few months. So why don't we work wrestling, keeping the distance, striking? You know, my ground will never catch up to his.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's a good life lesson too, right? I mean, focus on what you're really good at.
Yeah.
Try to get better at some of the things you're not, but
yeah. So when I train people now, I tell them like when they go in and I'll help them with like a little bit of a game plan, but I'm like, don't focus on the game plan too much. Just focus on being the best you. Don't worry about what they're going to do. Fuck what they're going to do. Make them worry about what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I guess it just comes with experience. And then it probably does depend on the fighter too. Some guys like to obsess on that stuff and work it. But so you get to, what was it? You were about 29, right? So you had a great UFC career. I think everybody was pretty surprised when you retired. I believe I read you were 29 at retirement, still at your peak. You were still winning. It wasn't like anything went bad that we know about. So what kind of took you to retirement? Your focus wasn't there, or?
That's that's the best way to describe it is whenever, which I didn't really know at the time. I was just kind of going with my heart or whatever, or what I thought was my heart, but it was really more in my head. To me, I had so many other things going on. I had created other like opportunities and business things that I was kind of spread thin here and there. And at that time, I really just couldn't get my mind right. I couldn't get my mind focused to where it needed to be for fighting. So I thought instead of wasting time there, I could focus that energy somewhere else, and looking back at it, I was just kind of following the need that we all have to just kind of like find ourselves and to find, there's something missing here type of a thing. So I did have the eye surgeries. I had a detached retina, and then I recovered from that, and then it happened again. And then I went on a 4-fight streak, and then my last couple of fights were just kind of they were just kind of ugly. I waited all those years to rematch Yushin Okami, and then I just kind of just gassed out. And then I fought Bisping. Both of those were just, my weight cuts at 185 were just too much at the time. And, I was in my head about the eye, and then Bisping poked the eye, and I just had all this doubt that was really created. And I had kind of felt like that I had really taxed my willpower, just coming back and doing it again and resetting my mind and refocusing. And it just seemed like at the time that I was getting all the signs to leave what I was doing, and I was also in a way getting pressure from the world for risking my eyesight and continuing down this path that had risked my eyesight and trying to get this dream and whatnot. But I had other opportunities to provide for my family and to, and I had made a name for myself there. So there was some pressure there, from what other people put on you. And I think that's one thing that I learned is like, once I stopped following my own heart, my own instincts to follow my passion, and I started going in a direction that other people kind of wanted me to, i.e., making more money, right? making money and getting things, buying houses and cars and creating this big illusion that it's all for the kids and it's all for the family. And I guess got to keep, boom, boom, boom. But it's really just, it's the same kind of instinct that makes you want to do anything, really, is just do something, but we always connect it to somehow or another. It has to be, got to get more rich, more famous, more, more things or whatever. Exactly. So I had to go down that road and kind of learn that. And every stage that I went to, I kept raising the bar and getting more stuff and more money and opening more businesses, getting more investments. And I really just stressed myself out doing it. And I realized that no matter how much that I got, I would always be sacrificing something else. And then I would always be wanting more.
Can I ask you a question here? Because we actually talk about this quite a bit too. It's something that I didn't realize I did until later in my career, but you said you were always raising the bar. It was always just more. Do you find that you didn't really celebrate your wins very much because you just were always looking at like what's next? I felt like I did that a lot. I would win and I would literally just be like, all right, when's the next fight? Like go right into it. I never like took it in. And I tell Chris this a lot, like business wise, like we got to celebrate even just small wins more because it makes the journey a little bit more enjoyable and your mind stays better. Do you feel like that?
Yes.
You were in that?
100%. 100. I mean, that's a classic. It's just a classic case of an ambitious person right there, man. It's like you're super hard on yourself whenever you lose, and whenever you win, it's kind of like, I could have done better. Like, let's get to another one. You're just chasing that, that thing. And that's a recipe for burnout because it's literally, if you look at the science behind it, it's like motivation science. The dopamine is what motivates you. So whenever you're literally, you get that thing that you've been working for and you don't purposely give yourself some type of reward that your brain can comprehend as some type of reward, then you're exactly what we're talking about. You're literally raising the bar on what you have to do to get motivated or to be happy. And it's internally happening like that. Whether you look at it from scientific or spiritual or whatever, I see those things as kind of the same thing. But yeah, on the spiritual level, even it's just draining your soul, whenever you're doing that. So yeah, you have to take your time and, like you said, enjoy the process and enjoy the journey, reward yourself along the way. So you're kind of creating your own motivation, your own reward system.
Yeah. There you go. Now you heard it twice, Miller.
Why'd you point at me?
Because he's guilty of this, like he's a business savage, right? Like he's been doing this stuff forever, and like it's always just on to the next. And I asked him, and so we had a discussion about this recently, like, why are you not happy about this? Like we just got this, like this big deal. And he's like, because now there's more to do. And I've been telling him, I'm like, you got to start finding a way, like buy yourself a gift or celebrate those wins.
True. No. And I listen, I'm not opposed to listening. And I think I've taken steps to that. I think, our business now, there's definitely a lot more things that allow us to enjoy the journey, which, by the way, Alan, I hope you get to make it out to our we built a new Fit Soda gym and we got dudes rolling in here and stuff. So be good to have you out. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think something I relate to in Alan's story is I think when you get the stuff too, because I've had all the stuff. Yeah. That was my first, and coincidentally, Alan, my first meltdown was around 28, 29 too, because I had the car, I had the girl, I had it all. I had the job, I had the company, I was making $1 million a year. And I was empty inside. It just felt fucking gross. And so I had my first meltdown then. I think definitely one of the ruts I get into with this is because it's such a razor's edge all the time that it forces us to push so hard. Yeah. Because the business is still so fragile. It's not necessarily about the ambition, although it is. I want to be $1 billion brand. So yeah, it is never good enough still. Something I'm working on. I'm very aware of it. Yes. But as we grow and add more employees and more things, there's always a million other things to manage. And I think, our podcast last week, and then even hearing this from Alan, there's, that's why lately I've been really guarded with my time. Like I don't do meetings anymore before 11 a.m. I'm really trying to create those boundaries. I think as you grow in success,
right,
you also lose boundaries unintentionally that you're not paying attention to, which also stresses you out. I'm working really hard on boundaries and time, and
you're working on yourself.
Yeah, 1,000%.
You're working on yourself, bro. Yeah, because it's like the thing that gets you where you are, and that's what I was talking about. The thing, the chip on my shoulder and my ambition that served me and didn't serve me anymore. So you have to keep creating a new version of yourself to go to the higher level.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. In my meltdown, I wouldn't call it really a meltdown at that time. I was in a confused time, but I didn't really let it slow me down. I just made the choice to kind of just switch and do something else. And, in my home life, it's like, okay, well, all this time and energy that you're putting up here into this fighting thing, now you're going to, it was almost like I transitioned into, being more of a regular person, not quite, still the ambitious psychopath, but, and my wife at the time is like, well, man, now you're not fighting and stuff. You're just putting more time into whatever you're doing over here. And I'm like, yeah, I know. That's like,
you got to do it.
You get the point now. That's how I operate. It doesn't matter what I'm going to do. So all I did was I just took that, but it was in my outlet in fighting was more of a passion. It was more of a passion, and it happened to be physical too. So now I'm going into business where I'm on my phone all the time, looking at the screen, not getting as much exercise, talking to people, networking, and people. I hate to say people steal my energy, but I'm a type of I recharge alone. I'm more of an introvert.
Yeah, same.
And so I'm learning how to sell and speak and be a speaker and be on social media and networking with people all the time. It just crushed my soul. Everything became about the material world and the ego. And I kept losing my my spiritual side, losing that. When it was selling your soul, whatever that's what's happened. You're getting further and further away from your true self, from where I was discovering that as a teenager and going into a young man. And I did it through fighting. And then I go into this business thing and I'm like, okay, well, I guess, being successful and stuff is what I want. So let me just go over there and do it. But instead, I sold my soul. I sold my true self. And my breakdown came later. This all led to a divorce when I guess I'm about 32, 33, something like that. So a few years after fighting is really just a couple of years of me just being a hardcore 24/7 entrepreneur. And you probably followed some of the stuff that I was doing. I mean, I just was involved in all kinds of businesses, dozens of brands, probably hundreds of online products, 4 gyms at once, a consulting company, yada, 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 like all kinds of stuff, man, all kinds of stuff. And it just led to just kind of breaking down my family, getting a divorce. Yeah, man, I mean, we're just sometimes just too hard-headed, too much ego to really see it. So,
yeah, I think too, with what you're saying is, I have this new phrase that I've been repeating to myself and writing in my journal every morning, which is protect your life force. And your life force are those things that some people call balance, et cetera. Even in the last 2 years in this business, I've noticed some of that's been taken. How sometimes I bust your guys' balls for, there's 20 people who walk into my office every day and have a question.
Yeah.
The more of those I answer, the less of myself I become by the end of every day, the more mad I get, et cetera. So life force has been a big thing, but I think with what you're saying too, with all the businesses, all the projects, not only do you for me, the more of those there are, the less good you are at the 1 or 2 you should really be good at. And then that starts to weigh on your brain too. Like I know I'm not crushing these 8 other things that I'm doing, even though I've committed to them.
Yeah.
Which starts to wear you out too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because you are like, you've been I would say you were one of the more successful guys in MMA, like outside of the cage. I mean, I knew even back then when I was at your gym, like your gyms were really successful. Is it your consulting company, your lead services? We actually use it at my jiu-jitsu gym. The owner of my gym uses your software or whatever for leads. You've built a lot of avenues for yourself and shown that you're a smart, successful guy. So now, you're in retirement, you focus all in on business. You just weren't finding that passion that you like.
Yeah.
And here's the main part of today, man. Like the reason we're having you on too is you come out of retirement and you enter BKFC, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. What made you decide bare knuckle was the route you wanted to go? Because I'm willing to bet the UFC probably would have even signed you back.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, that's the relevance of that is that's more of just kind of like a fitting type of, it just kind of fit what I was needing at the time. Like bare knuckle plays really good for, for me to kind of, in the beginning, especially not to down my competition at all. That this competition that I've had in bare knuckle have been plenty hard enough. But for me, being out of the game so long, I wanted to make sure that boxing only allows me to just work on that and just focus on this. So, it's kind of like building back up. And I wanted to do this to, not dabble in it. I don't dabble in anything. I knew that all these years too, I think it's probably important to say that I had thought about fighting again every month, every week, probably the whole 8 years that I was out.
Were you training while you were out still for fun or?
Yeah, I was training for fun. I was teaching a little bit and just trying to keep myself in shape here and there. Lots of ups and downs physically, weight gain, weight loss, and that type of thing. Trying to figure out that type of thing. But I think that, for me, what's really important about like my state of mind and where I'm at now in my mindset and doing this fighting thing is that that meltdown that you were talking about earlier, it really came to me. I guess it's about almost 2 years now. So which is also kind of marks another mile marker for me is not drinking alcohol for 2 years. So that's coming up. Yeah, that's coming up in late February, something like that. A couple of years ago, I was we had like a retreat to Tulum, because if you remember, I used to do these retreats around the world to Thailand and Tulum, and go around and personal development, business growth, that type of thing. And really, a couple of years ago, I was just in such a bad place with my own stress levels, my mental health. I was in a toxic relationship with a girl that I was about to marry. And I just kind of looked at myself in the mirror and was just like, this is not, to the outside, everybody thinks you're balling. Everybody thinks that your life is so good. And
you want snacks, give him treats.
Hey, what's up with the dog?
Dad, I want treats.
Yo,
so were you at a place with the booze where it was, personal question, you don't have to answer, we can edit it out.
No, yeah.
Were you at a place where it was getting bad, like 10 a.m. type stuff, and you were, or was it like just drinks at night? How bad did it get?
Yeah. So like for me, my daily addictions were more, so booze to me were a little bit more related to trying to relieve the stress and relax and also socialize with people. So this is something that a lot of people don't really admit with their alcohol use, is that they're using the drug for a reason. You gotta realize that on whatever level you're doing it, you're using a drug for a certain reason, And for a lot of times, once you realize that you don't have these inhibitions and stuff, when with talking to people, you'll use alcohol when you're in social situations or whatever, just because it feels good to be in more of a flow and not to have to worry and be self-conscious. And alcohol takes that away.
Yeah, you loosen up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's another couple things that I was doing at the time was like Adderall to focus or try to focus or to have energy, Xanax or you're like stressed out or whatever. So I was never like, I've always been conscious enough and mindful enough to not let myself get into too bad of a spot with daily use. I think with eating, probably sugar and stuff like that has been my worst drug. That has been some of the hardest battles during that time. But it's just, one thing leads to another. And the reason why I decided to stop drinking is just because I just realized one day that I couldn't enter into those social situations anymore without it. And I almost needed it, So, all those, and I think everyone knows this, kind of common sense, but like anything that is helping you, like, take away your fear or anxiety is ultimately going to add more to it.
I like that.
So facing those fears sober is the way to go for sure. If you want to reach the, highest version of yourself, then you have to learn how to be quiet, and you have to learn how to be still, learn how to be sober, be still, be quiet, and operate there. That's where most of us don't really want to be. We want to be around people and whatnot.
This is Chris is going to hate this. Did you, so be still was one of the things that, it's obviously in the Bible. Every great text talks about it. Mm-hmm. Did you learn that concept, be still, through church, through therapy, through, where did you first get it? Because when I first learned it, I was in church, but then I would go to like, these prayer groups, and those didn't work because it was too active. And then I found transcendental meditation. And then I'm a lot like you, man. I pretend to be this social butterfly, but I'd rather be at home reading a book. So my first sort of, like you called it, mile marker happened at 28 for me. I started just consuming books, everything I could get my hands on. And I kept seeing that idea of be still.
Yeah.
Where did you learn that? And how did you apply it? Because I think for a lot of people, it's a really tough concept. In fact, Chris and I have talked about it a lot with him, how to be still with yourself and take it in.
I struggle with that. I'm not one of those like recharge alone. I'm like, I don't know.
I can always tell when your girlfriend's out of town. Yeah. I get a call immediately, like, "Hey, dude, want to hang out?"
Yeah. No, I get it, man. Yeah, I've been that guy before too.
So how did be still come into your life, and how did you sort of?
I mean, I think my most recent breakthroughs with this has happened in the last couple of years. So I was a personal development junkie, and I've listened to, a lot of different people talk about that. And throughout the years, learning about meditation, I wouldn't even say learning, but just kind of like dabbling in the idea of meditation, but never really applying it, has, looking back at that, I realized that my mistake was actually diving deep into something and understanding the importance of it. So, and it's just something I think that we're going to just progress as a society, is learning more about this. And so since
because it's noisier than ever, right? It's like it's never been busier. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. We're at a turning point where religion is dead. Spirituality is dead. And there's nowhere for us to turn except for back to spirituality and meditation. And now it's a lot of talk about meditation. It's just the science of spirituality, basically. So, this has all been in the last 2 years. Knowing it. So when you say, where did you learn it? Where did you learn it? And where did you hear about it? This is my whole life. So, I mean, I grew up not really in church, but I was seeking God at even 8 years old, and I started questioning religion and started comparing to other religions. So I've always been kind of like a philosophical type of thinker when it comes to, how does it make sense to say that, that if you worship a different God, you're going to go to hell or something. That just never sat right with me. So I spent a lot of my younger years really looking into religion and stuff, but I wasn't looking with my heart and my soul. I was looking, there was something it was all in my head, so knowing it and realizing things is something different. And I didn't realize this until about 2 years ago, when I decided to completely get mad at where I was in life, spiritually mainly. I realized that it didn't matter where I had got with business or whatever. It wasn't meaningful. There wasn't any purpose to it. So in this time period, I started seeking spirituality, and I started to practice some meditation. But even with like the open-mindedness to practice meditation, I still hadn't realized how important it was yet. What really made me realize the first thing that made me realize the importance of meditation is my friend Robbie was really into the Wim Hof method of breathing. And so we started doing this breath work, and he's like, let's just do this every day and just see what happens. And we started kind of just, talking about our, what was going on and what we were experiencing at the time. And we both realized that our minds were a lot sharper. We could breathe a lot better. We could breathe out of our nose better. We slept better at night. Our recovery process was much faster. Our soreness, what would normally take 3 or 4 days and just have a bad week, if you did the breath work, you just reset yourself right then, and that night you could train again.
Wow.
It's like, wow, this is great for so many things. And I accidentally stumbled upon meditation and not realizing that Wim Hof breath method is meditation. But I was looking from it from a different angle, and I started to realize as I got better at it, and this is kind of how I stumbled on it. Like, if you're familiar with it, the method is to breathe in and out, breathe in and out, breathe in and out. You're oxidating yourself. And then you breathe out and you hold. Okay. And then after a certain amount of time, there's different lengths, and you work up. You're trying to work up to 4 or 5 minutes of a hold without the oxygen in your lungs. So as you're holding that out and you're first learning, you'll start to realize that whenever you think, your mind starts to race, or you start to get distracted, or you start to wiggle or twitch, not be still, it costs energy. And I would realize, okay, I'm playing like a game. I'm trying to see if I can hold my breath for the whole full 1 minute. Just say 1 minute at first, you're trying. And so it's like a game to me. And I want to do that, right? I'm a competitor. So I'm like, okay, I want to be able to hold for a minute or 2 minutes or whatever. So I realized, okay, well, shit, I can't do this if I'm all worried about it. And like, oh, I'm holding my breath. I'm fucking freaking myself out in my head, So you realize that freaking yourself out is not the answer. We already kind of know that, right? Yeah. So, but going, learning it in this type of situation, I realized that I started to get better at it, and I could do longer breath holds. And then I realized once you get to a certain level, then you get back to the breathing in, breathing out, breathe out, hold again. And then you do it again 3 or 4 times in, something starts to happen. You're like, what is going on? This kind of feels like drugs. This kind of feels like something is happening in my brain. Now I'm starting to see things whenever I close my eyes. Pictures I'm starting to dream, but I'm awake. It's crazy. So that's how I kind of stumbled onto meditation, and realizing that what I had tried before was sitting there in silence and being still, but thinking in my head, this is boring. Man, I can't do this very long. Shit.
I'm going to have to check that out, because that's my problem. I've always wanted to get into like meditating and stuff, but when it's quiet and everything, my brain just goes insane and I can't actually relax.
Alan, too, that the first time I went to a guru to learn TM, and they just give you your chakra that you repeat, and they teach you sort of the same thing. Hey, when your mind gets busy, it's okay. Recognize there's a thought. Get back to your chakra. It clears your mind. I remember 10 minutes into my first session, like real session, I started hallucinating with my eyes closed, and it felt like 2 minutes, and I'd been sitting there for an hour.
Really?
Yeah, and I started seeing stuff too. You start to see thoughts like crystallize, like lasers almost. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, 100%, man. That's it's like a meditative state. And that is actually.
Doesn't it release the same chemicals as drugs? Some of the
DMT inside of your brain.
Right.
Your DMT is created from your pituitary gland and from your lungs. So heavy breathing can get you to release DMT inside your brain.
Now we're talking.
So, but
now you got now you got Chris's attention.
So what? So that's a really good thing to look at for you, Chris. Is like I was the same thing, and I've said the same thing. So I definitely see where you're coming from and hear where you're coming from. I had that exact same mindset about it. You have to shift your perception of what you're looking at here. And meditation is literally a practice to get better at what you're talking about you're bad at. So when you say, I can't meditate because my mind's always racing and that type of thing, that is literally what meditation heals. So imagine it would be like saying, I can't bench press because every time I try to lift it, it's too fucking heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're like, well,
you build up to it.
You got to start. Yeah, you got to build that strength. So when you sit there, and that's something that a lot of people don't teach and they don't really tell you, is like, it's okay to sit there and have a racing mind. Because what you're trying to do is, when people say, are you working on your mental? How's your mindset? How's your thing? This is how you do it, man. People don't see it yet. They will in the future. This is getting bigger. But to work on your mind is not like what we thought about in fighting, okay? Is a lot of times, and all we think about in our mind is how do we not succumb to ourselves wanting to quit and keep going,
just
and
get
dial
tougher.
into rage. Yeah, this is just toughness. This is rage. You know, this is rage, and we learn some of these emotions. But to be a full, well-rounded person, and to have these powers to create things in life, you want to be able to tap into any type of emotion, into your emotional state. And having control of your thoughts is one of them. So like what he was saying about when you have those thoughts, you know, you just observe them, you know? So when you sit there and you practice it, it's literally, it seems kind of silly until you realize the huge benefit of it. You sit there and you start to observe your thoughts.
Okay, I'm gonna make you a deal. I'm gonna try this out for a bit. I'll look up the Wim Hof stuff, and I'm gonna give it a shot.
Wim Hof, yeah.
I'll teach you TM too.
Yeah,
TM's crazy.
I'll put some effort into it and see what I can do. Has this become part of your like warm up routine in the locker rooms or anything?
Yeah, 100%. Yes, 100%. This is a daily. I meditate. It's a practice now for the last 2 years that has just developed so much more and more and more. And it's like one of those things. It's just like I'm ADD and ADHD, so I'm like,
Same.
I get obsessed with things. So whenever I can dial it into something like this, I take it very far. So I meditate multiple times a day. I can't even count how many times I meditate. I literally meditate every time I start to lose my center, you just kind of understand what I'm talking about once you kind of get into this, because you start to realize that there's more layers to you, deeper. And once you connect with that, you don't really want to get back in your head. So Tony Robbins has a saying. He says, if you're in your head, you're dead. And that hit me really hard, because it's like, I don't want to be dead. I want to be alive, Yeah. And it's like, if you're in your head, you're dead. So living in your head is literally living dead. You've heard that people are asleep. There's this matrix going on. Like, this is literally the way to escape the matrix. This is a way to escape the head. Everyone's living up here. The ego exists here.
Yeah,
right?
I'm guilty of that.
The ego is up here, and if you're living in that, you're just part of the fucking system, you know. So if you want to rise above that, you have to like dig into layers deeper than that and get out of your head. And you get out of your head by realizing, here's the first step right here. Here's another thing. This will change someone's life. I figure that if they've never heard it before, is your thoughts are not your own thoughts.
Yeah.
When you think a thought, you really feel like that's, you know, Chris Camozzi thinking, but it's just Chris Camozzi's brain.
Yeah, I've heard that, and that blew my mind kind of hearing that.
Yeah, man. So like when you meditation teaches you, you know, literally that's the kind of the point that I'm at now is I'll just close my eyes and just go, okay, what happens when I just listen and I just observe what's happening with my brain, and some kind of thought will come in there, you know, and whatever it is, you can just smile at it because it's just like, you didn't do it. You didn't plan it. You were just waiting for something to happen, and the thought came. And it teaches you. It teaches you that it's this whole life we've been living it just by, you know, what's been programmed into our brain, and then it comes back out as thoughts, and we think that's the reality just because it causes feelings and things, and then the feelings cause more thoughts, and it's like it's this big ass cycle.
Yeah, you're selling me.
I love what you're saying too, bro. Your ego's not your amigo. Number one. Number two.
Just make that a shirt.
Tony Robbins always does Wim Hof before he goes on stage, so he practices that breath work before he goes on stage. I would also say stillness is the secret. You know, Newton left Oxford University and developed the laws of mathematics, basically, and he credited it with being still. Andrew Carver, who invented peanut butter, said that he used to go behind this altar and meditate, and that's how every invention he ever came up with came. And I love this conversation because that's why when you're in the shower, you come up with cool stuff. That's why when you cook, you're coming up with good ideas because you're actually meditating. You're actually giving your brain freedom to actually process things.
I got to get better at this, for sure, because everything that you said is like, that's how my brain works. That's how I am. I live up in my head all the time.
I think what Alan said too is great. Like anyone listening, it's like anything, like just start with a minute or start with 30 seconds every day and work your way
100%.
into, I think a lot of people sit and they think it has to be 20 minutes of this like earth shattering meditation. No, I think when you start, it can be 2 minutes of just breath work. I'm
going to give it a shot. I'm going to try it maybe every morning. I'm going to figure out a time that I can like commit.
You should do a meditation at the office every day.
Let's do it. So Alan, let's get into this title fight, bro. We got to
let's go.
Bare knuckle heavyweight title.
Meditation to bare knuckle heavyweight title. Let's go.
Meditation to cracking heads. So your opponent, you're fighting the champ. Is it Arnold Allen?
Arnold Adams.
Arnold Adams. He's the current BKFC heavyweight champion. I looked him up a bit. I saw that he's had quite a few bare knuckle fights already. I think it's like 7 or 8, which.
Yeah, he's 7-1. Yeah, he's won his last 7 in a row.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've been killing it, man. So I showed these guys the video. You got knockout of the year, right, with bare knuckle.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I didn't even know that guy had so much liquid in his mouth. When you hit him, it looked like somebody got soaked outside of the cage. It's the craziest punch. So you come back in bare knuckle, and you're just sleeping everybody, and now you've earned this title shot. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on your opponent and being bare knuckle heavyweight champion, or at least title contender right now?
My opponent is the perfect opponent for the time being. Like everything that I've done up to this point is necessary and needed to beat Arnold Adams. He's got a good little win streak going. His style, I feel, has it's really benefited him in bare knuckle. He's a pretty good boxer. So it's just everything is leading up to this point to the state of mind that I'm in now is just pretty hard to beat, I would say. So my opponent is a very challenging opponent, but he just doesn't have what it takes to beat me. coming into this. I feel like I'm competing against myself mainly, so winning to me is just progressing through this stage. And, I've thought a lot about it, and instead of like fighting and then retiring and then coming back and that type of thing, I look at this whole thing as just a total, just a process, just one process to get me where I am right now in the present moment, and just keep trucking forward. So I don't think that there's any way that I'm going to lose this fight. I'm just so in tune and mindful of everything that I'm doing, and realistic with what I need to do. Just very hard to beat. And I've put a lot of work into becoming a knockout artist and making my art knocking people out.
It shows.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So I told you that when I do something, I don't dabble in it. So I was hesitant to come back to fighting until the time was right. And I finally was just like, you know what are you afraid of? Let's go. And I think a lot of my fear was, I knew that I would try to do it the best that I could do. And I knew that was going to be a hell of a challenge, and, it's a hell of a commitment, but it feels so good to commit to something, man. It feels so good to
have a goal,
to really chase something, that's worthwhile and meaningful for you, So to me, this is just another part of the process. And I really wanted my children to be able to see me create the life that I want, and show them how a thought or an imagination could come to life, So that's it's always been a plan, man, to come into to get to this title fight. So
absolutely. I saw him say one thing I found curious, because I looked him up. I'm not too familiar with him. I'm fighting for BKFC, but I don't know half the guys in it. Honestly, I watch it, but I guess I don't know a lot of the names. So I looked him up, and he was saying that nobody can train for him because every fight is different and he's different, and there's nothing that you can do to train for him because it'll be something you've never seen. And I feel like that's a fairly common thing that people say. Everybody thinks they're different. Because when I was watching his fights, I didn't see anything like, it's not like he's out there being super unorthodox like Johnny Walker or like John Jones or something, where just out of nowhere. I mean, bare knuckle, you get two hands just like the other guy. Do you even pay attention to that? Like, your thoughts on that? Because I couldn't find anything different when I watched a few of his fights. It just looked like basic boxing.
I've learned to take words for what they are. They're just words, so I don't really pay too much attention. I look more at the person's attitude and their actions that they have, and kind of I've developed this sense of almost just like reading people,
Yeah.
and that's came from learning more about myself. And I feel like the more that I learn about myself, the more that I see myself in other people too. So when I'm looking at you, or I'm looking at Arnold Adams, or I'm listening to him, I'm just seeing a different version of myself, and just kind of looking at his eyes and kind of seeing what they're thinking. So I don't look too much into it. I know all the signs to look for and whatnot. And he doesn't have what it takes to beat me. He doesn't have what it takes. And it's hard to beat someone that is in the process and of trying to master themselves.
Yeah, I like that.
So that's all I really have there, and I know the importance of knocking someone out now. To play the game and the fight game, as you know, it's not good enough to just win a fight or two fights. You need to win over and over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and if your fights
fashion.
Yes, and that's another thing. Yes, your spectacular fashion. So, and what is more spectacular than a knockout? So I'm taking every single one of these fights. If you're fighting me, you should expect that I am trying to knock you out. I'm not just trying to win. I'm trying to knock you out, and I'm trying to make it very hard for you to even touch me. So that's kind of my plan. It's a pretty simple plan, but it works. Like I said, whenever you focus on something, it works. So
simplicity works. Simple plans are the best plans usually.
I got 7 knockouts in a row. So and I plan on making that, at least 20 more.
So you're working on your consciousness while you're separating other people's.
Exactly.
I like that.
So, okay. Can we ask you, do you have a prediction? Do you make predictions? I want to know where to throw my money.
He just did.
Yeah,
he said he can't be beat.
Yeah, I'm predicting a knockout by 3rd round. I'm just yeah. So a lot of my predictions in my other fights have been either 1st round, 2nd round, or whatever. I feel like this is a title fight. I should be able. I'm just constantly trying to look for an opening to knock you out. So I think I'll find it by the 3rd round.
I agree with you. When I was looking him up, I saw he pops his chin up quite a bit. He throws, pulls his head back, stands up tall. You stay a lot lower. You step in hard. I agree with that.
Let's go.
So that's February 24th, New Orleans, correct?
Yes, sir.
BKFC. And I saw on your Instagram, you have a link for tickets in your profile, right? Tables, tickets. So check them out. Where can they find you on, what is it, Instagram? What else you got?
Just look for Alan Belcher on Instagram, whatever, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter.
Love it.
All that stuff.
Awesome, man. Well, if you got anything else that you want to get off your chest, otherwise, man, we appreciate your time. And
Alan, this is great, bro. Really great.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I just hope that that I was able to, affect somebody with my story. I feel like that's part of my plan to do this. It's one thing to be ambitious and to do things in your life, but I feel like I've figured out that sharing that with other people is not only a way for you to continue to get better and to learn yourself, but it actually does affect people, So
you affected.
man. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to do that.